Proverbs chapter 8, King James Bible. Doth not wisdom cry, and understanding put forth her voice? She standeth in the top of high places, by the way in the places of the paths. She crieth at the gates, at the entry of the city, at the coming in at the doors. Unto you, O men, I call, and my voice is to the sons of man. O ye simple, understand wisdom, and ye fools, be ye of an understanding heart. Hear, for I will speak of excellent things, and the opening of my lips shall be right things. For my mouth shall speak truth, and wickedness is an abomination to my lips. All the words of my mouth are in righteousness. There is nothing froward or perverse in them. They are all plain to him that understandeth, and right to them that find knowledge. Receive my instruction, and not silver, and knowledge rather than choice gold. For wisdom is better than rubies, and all the things that may be desired are not to be compared to it. I, wisdom, dwell with prudence, and find out knowledge of witty inventions. The fear of the Lord is to hate evil. Pride and arrogance and the evil way, and the froward mouth do I hate. Counsel is mine, and sound wisdom. I am understanding, I have strength. By me kings reign, and princes decree justice. By me princes rule, and nobles, even all the judges of the earth. I love them that love me, and those that seek me early shall find me. Riches and honor are with me, yea, durable riches and righteousness. My fruit is better than gold, yea, than fine gold, and my revenue than choice silver. I lay in the way of righteousness, in the midst of the paths of judgment, that I may cause those that love me to inherit substance, and I will fill their treasures. The Lord possessed me in the beginning of his way, before his works of old. I was set up from everlasting, from the beginning, or ever the earth was. When there were no depths, I was brought forth. When there were no fountains abounding with water. Before the mountains were settled, before the hills was I brought forth. While as yet he had not made the earth, nor the fields, nor the highest part of the dust of the world. When he prepared the heavens, I was there. When he set a compass upon the face of the depth. When he established the clouds above. When he strengthened the fountains of the deep. When he gave to the sea his decree, that the waters should not pass his commandment. When he appointed the foundations of the earth, then I was by him, as one brought up with him, and I was daily his delight, rejoicing always before him, rejoicing in the habitable part of his earth, and my delights were with the sons of men. Now therefore hearken unto me, O ye children, for blessed are they that keep my ways. Hear instruction and be wise, and refuse it not. Blessed is the man that heareth me, watching daily at my gates, waiting at the post of my doors. For whoever findeth me findeth life, and shall obtain the favor of the Lord. But he that sinneth against me wrongeth his own soul. All they that hate me love death. On the lodestone and magnetic bodies, and on the great magnet, the earth. By William Gilbert. To the most learned Mr. William Gilbert, the distinguished London physician and father of the magnetic philosophy, a laudatory address concerning these books on magnetism by Edward Wright. Should there be anyone, most worthy sir, who shall disparage these books and researches of yours, and who shall deem these studies trifling, and in no way wise sufficiently worthy, and who shall deem these studies trifling, and in no wise sufficiently worthy of a man consecrated to the graver study of medicine, of a surety he will be esteemed no common simpleton, for that the uses of the lodestone are very considerable, yea, admirable, is too well known even among men of the lowest class, to call for many words from me at this time or for any commendation. In truth, in my opinion, there is no subject matter of higher importance or of greater utility to the human race upon which you could have brought your philosophical talents to bear. For by the God-given favor of this stone has it come about that the things which for so many centuries lay hid, such vast continents of the globe, so infinite a number of countries, islands, nations, and peoples, have been almost within our memory, easily discovered and oft explored, and that the whole circle of the globe has been circumnavigated more than once by our own Drake and Cavendish, which fact I wish to record for the underlying remembrance of those men. For, by the showing of the magnetized needle, the points north, south, east, and west, and the other points of the compass are known to navigators, even while the sky is murky and in the deepest night. By this means seamen have understood toward what point they must steer their course, a thing that was quite impossible before the wondrous discovery of the north-pointing power of the lodestone. Hence sailors of old were often beset, as we learn from the histories, by an incredible anxiety and by great peril. For when storms raged, and the sight of sun and stars was cut off, they knew not whither they were sailing. Neither could they by any means or by any device find out. Hence what must have been the gladness, what the joy of all mariners when first their magnetic pointer offered itself as a most sure guide on the route, and as a god Mercury. But it was not enough for this magnetic Mercury simply to point out the way, and, as it were, to show by the extended finger whither the course must be. It soon began even to indicate the distance of the place whither the voyage is made. For, since the magnetic pointer does not always regard the same northern point or the same northern spot in every locality, but usually varies therefrom, either to the east or to the west, though it nevertheless hath and holds every the same variation in the same place, wherever that may be, it has come about that by means of this variation, as it is called, closely observed and noted in certain maritime regions, together with an observation of the latitude, the same places can afterward be found by navigators, when they approach and come near the same variation. Herein the Portuguese in their voyages to the East Indies have the surest tokens of their approaching the Cape of Good Hope, as is shown in the narrations of Hugo Linceiensis, and our very learned fellow countryman Richard Hakluyt. Hereby, too, many of our skilled British navigators, when voyaging from the Gulf of Mexico to the Azores, can tell when they are come near to these islands, though according to their marine charts, they may appear to be 600 English miles away. And thus, thanks to this magnetic indication, that ancient geographical problem, how to discover the longitude, would seem to be on the way to a solution. For the variation of a seaboard, place being known, that place can thereafter be easily found as often as occasion may require, provided its latitude is not unknown. Yet somewhat of inconvenience and difficulty seems to attach to this observation of the variation, for it cannot be made except when the sun or the stars are shining. Accordingly, this magnetic Mercury of the sea, better far than Neptune himself or any of the sea gods or goddesses, proceeds still further to bestow blessings on all mariners, and not alone in the darkness of nights, and when the sea is murky, does he show the true direction, but he seems even to give the surest indication of the latitude. For the iron pointer suspended freely, and with the utmost precision and equilibrium on its axis, and then touched and excited with a lodestone, dips down to a fixed and definite point below the horizon. Ergo, in the latitude of London, it dips nearly 72 degrees. And there stands. but because of the wonderful agreement and congruency manifested in nearly all the singular magnetic experiments, equally in the earth itself and in a terrella, in essence, a spherical lodestone, it seems, to say the least, highly probable and more than probable that the same pointer, similarly stroked with a lodestone, will, at the equator, stand in equilibrium on the plane of the horizon. Hence, too, it is highly probable that in proceeding a very short distance from south to north, or vice versa, there will be a pretty sensible change in the dip, and thus the dip being carefully noted once, and the latitude observed, the same place and the same latitude may thereafter be readily found by means of a dip instrument, even in the darkest nights and in the thickest weather. Thus, then, to bring our discourse back again to you, most worthy and learned Mr. Gilbert, whom I gladly acknowledge as my master in this magnetical philosophy, if these books of yours on the lodestone contain naught save this one method of finding the latitude from the magnetic dip, now first published by you, even so are British mariners, as well as the French, the Dutch, the Danes, whenever they have to enter the British Sea, or the Strait of Gibraltar, from the Atlantic Ocean, will justly hold them worth no small sum of gold. And that discovery of yours, that the entire globe is magnetical, albeit to many it will seem to the last degree paradoxical, nevertheless is buttressed and confirmed by so many, and so apposite experiments in Book 2, Chapter 34, Book 3, Chapters 4 and 12, and throughout nearly the whole of Book 5, that no room is left for doubt or contradiction. I come therefore to the cause of magnetic variation, a problem that till now has perplexed the minds of the learned, but no one ever set forth a cause more probable than the one proposed now, for the first time in these your books on the lodestone. The fact that the magnetic needle points due north, in the middle of the ocean, and in the heart of continents, or at least in the heart of their more massive and more elevated parts, while near the coast there is afloat and ashore an indication of the needle toward those more massive parts, just as happens in a terrella that is made to resemble the earth globe in its greater elevation at some parts, and shows that it is weak or decayed or otherwise imperfect elsewhere. All this makes exceedingly probable the theory that the variation is nothing but a deviation of the magnetic needle to those more powerful and more elevated regions of the globe. Hence, the reason of the irregularity that is seen in the variation of the compass is easily found in the inequality and anomaly of those more elevated parts. Nor do I doubt that all those who have imagined or accepted certain respective points, as well as they who speak of magnetic mountains or rocks or poles, will begin to waver as soon as they read these your books on the lodestone, and will of their own accord come over to your opinion. As for what you have finally to say on the circular motion of the earth, and the terrestrial poles. Though many will deem it the merest theorizing, still I do not see why it should not meet with indulgence even among those who do not acknowledge the earth's motion to be spherical, seeing that even they cannot readily extricate themselves from the many difficulties that result from a diurnal motion of the whole heavens. For first, it is not reasonable to have that done by any agents which can be done by fewer. For first, it is not reasonable to have that done by many agents which can be done by fewer, or to have the whole heavens and all the spheres, if spheres there be, of the planets and fixed stars, made to revolve from the sake of the diurnal motion, which may be accounted for by a daily rotation of the earth. Then which theory is more probable, that the equinoctial circle of the earth may make a rotary movement of 1/4 an English mile, 60 miles being equal to 1 degree of the earth's equator, in 1 second of time, in essence, and about as much time as it takes to make only one step when one is walking rapidly, or that the equator of the primus mobile is the same time, in the same time, or that the equator of the primus mobile in the same time, with inexpressible celerity, makes 5,000 miles, and that in the twinkling of an eye it makes about 50 earth miles, surpassing the velocity of a flash of lightning. If there are in the right who most strenuously deny the earth's motion, Finally, which is the more probable, to suppose that this little globe of the earth has some motion, or with mad license of conjecture to superpose 3 mighty starless spheres, a 9th, a 10th, and an 11th, upon the 8th sphere of the fixed stars, particularly when from these books on the lodestone and the comparison of the earth with the terrella, it is plain that the spherical motion is not so contrary to the nature of the earth as it is commonly supposed to be. Nor do the passages quoted from Holy Writ appear to contradict very strongly the doctrine of the earth's mobility. It does not seem to have been the intention of Moses or the other prophets. It does not seem to have been the intention of Moses or the prophets to promulgate nice mathematical or physical distinctions. They rather adapt themselves to the understanding of the common people and to the current fashion of speech, as nurses do in healing with babes. They do not attend to unessential minutiae. Thus, Genesis 1:16 and Psalms 136, 7, 9, the moon is called a great luminary, because it so appears to us, though to those versed in astronomy it is known that very many stars, fixed and planetary, are far larger. So too from Psalms Civic 5, who laid the foundations of the earth that it should not be removed forever. No argument of any weight can, I think, be drawn to contradict the earth's mobility, albeit it is said that God established the earth on her foundations, to the end it should never be moved. But apart from these matters, touching which no one, I do believe, ever gave more certain demonstrations. No doubt your discussion, if the causes of variation, and of the dip of the needle beneath the horizon, to say nothing of sundry other points which 'twould take too long to mention, will find the heartiest approval among all intelligent men and children of magnetic science, to use the language of the chemists. Nor have I any doubt that, by publishing these your books on the lodestone, you will stimulate all wide awake navigators to give not less study to observation of dip than of variation, for it is highly probable, if not certain, that latitude, or rather the effect of latitude, can be determined much more accurately, even when the sky is darkest, from the dip alone. That longitude, or the effect of longitude, can be found from the variation, even in the full light of day, or while all the stars are shining, and with the help of the most skillfully and ingeniously contrived instrument. Nor is there any doubt that those most learned men, Petrus, Plantius, Dutch theologian and astronomer, a most diligent student not so much of geography as of magnetic observation, and Simon Stevenius, a most eminent mathematician, will be not a little rejoiced when they find when first they set. A most eminent mathematician will be not a little rejoiced when first they set eyes on these your books, and therein see their own nous, or method of finding ports, so greatly and unexpectedly enlarged and developed. And of course they will, as far as they may be able, induce all navigators among their own countrymen to note the dip no less than the variation of the needle. Let your magnetic philosophy, most learned Mr. Gilbert, go forth then under the best auspices. That work held back not for 9 years only, according to Horace's counsel, but for almost other 9. That philosophy which by your multitudinous labors, studies, vigils, and by your skill, and at your no inconsiderable expense, has been after long years at last, by means of countless ingenious experiments, taken bodily out of the darkness and dense murkiness with which it was surrounded by the speculations of incompetent and shallow philosophizers. Nor did you in the meantime overlook, but did diligently read and digest whatever had been published in the writings, whether of the ancients or the moderns. Let it not be afraid to face the prejudiced censure of any supercilious and dastardly philosophaster, who, by enviously faulting another's work, or by fraudulently taking the credit to himself, strives to win a most unsubstantial renown. For ingenium magni levor detractet Homeri. Ingenium magni levor detractet Homeri. Ingenium magni levor detractet Homeri. Envy distracts from the genius of mighty Homer. Quaeques es ex illo zoeli nomen habes. Quaeques es ex illo zoeli nomes habes. Quaeques es ex illo zoeli nomes habes. Whoever thou art, for him, zoilus, dost thou derive thy fame? Your work, I say, that has been kept back for so many years, your new physiology of the lodestone and of the great magnet, in essence, the earth, a philosophy never to be sufficiently admired. Let it go forth into the light of publicity, for believe me, sequid habent veri vatum presagia. If the presages of poets has aught of truth, these your books on the lodestone, DeMagneto, will do more to perpetuate your memory than would the monument of any Magnetisque Corporibus erected over your grave. The author's preface is next. Above it is a beautiful sigil, a large rectangle with Dorian columns. It is a temple, one flat piece on top, one at the bottom, equal length, two Dorian columns in which there are vines meeting at the center, and you'll see what would normally be a blue flower crowned. To the left is a rampant lion crowned, and to the right a dragon looking to the left at the lion, holding on to what appears to be a mirror. Again, author's preface. To the candid reader, studious of the magnetic philosophy, since in the discovery of secret things and in the investigation of hidden causes, stronger reasons are obtained for sure experiments and demonstrated arguments that from probable conjectures and the opinions of philosophical speculators of the common sort, therefore to the end that the noble substance of that great lodestone, our common mother, the earth, still quite unknown, and also the forces extraordinary and exalted of this globe, may the better be understood, we have decided first to begin with the common stony and ferruginous matter and magnetic bodies, and the parts of the earth that we may handle and may perceive with the senses, then to proceed with plain magnetic experiments, and to penetrate to the inner parts of the earth. For after we had, in order to discover the true substance of the earth, seen and examined very many matters, taken out of lofty mountains, or the depths of seas, or deepest caverns, or hidden mines, we gave much attention for a long time to the study of magnetic forces. Wondrous forces they, surpassing the powers of all other bodies around us, though the virtues of all things dug out of the earth were to be brought together. Nor did we find this our labor vain or fruitless, for every day in our experiments novel, unheard of properties came to light. And our philosophy became so widened as a result of diligent research that we have attempted to set forth, according to magnetic principles, the inner constitution of the globe and its genuine substance, and in true demonstrations and in experiments that appeal plainly to the senses, as though we were pointing with the finger, to exhibit to mankind earth, mother of all, Dunya. And even as geometry, rises from certain slight and readily understood foundations, and even as geometry rises from certain slight and readily understood foundations to the highest and most difficult demonstrations, whereby the ingenious mind ascends above the aether, so does our magnetic doctrine and science in due order first show forth certain facts of less rare occurrence. From these proceed facts of a more extraordinary kind. At length in a sort of series, all revealed things, at length in a sort of series, are revealed things most secret and privy in the earth. And the causes are recognized of things that in the ignorance of those of old or through the heedlessness of the moderns were unnoticed or disregarded. But why should I, in so vast an ocean of books, whereby the minds of the studious are bemuddled and vexed, of books of the more stupid sort, whereby the common herd and fellows without a spark of talent are made intoxicated, crazy, puffed up, are led to write numerous books and to profess themselves philosophers, physicians, mathematicians, and astrologers, the while ignoring and contemning men of learning? Why, I say, should I add aught further to this confused world of writings? Or why should I submit this noble and, as compromising many things before unheard of, this new and inadmissible philosophy to the judgment of men who have taken oath to follow the opinions of others, to the most senseless corrupters of the arts, to lettered clowns, grammatists, sophists, spouters, and the wrong-headed rabble, to be denounced, torn to tatters, and heaped with contumely? To you alone, true philosophers, ingenious minds, who not only in books but in things themselves look for knowledge, have I dedicated these foundations of magnetic science, a new style of philosophizing. But if any see fit not to agree with the opinions here expressed, and not to accept certain of my paradoxes, still let them note the great multitude of experiments and discoveries. These it is chiefly that cause all philosophy to flourish. And we have dug them up and demonstrated them with such pains, and sleepless nights, and great money expense. Enjoy them you, and if you can, employ them for better purposes. I know how hard it is to impart the air of newness to what is old, trimness to what is gone out of fashion, to lighten what is dark, to make that grateful which exists, to make that grateful which excites disgust, to win belief for things doubtful. But far more difficult is it to win any standing for or to establish doctrines that are novel, unheard of, and opposed to everybody's opinions. We care not for that, as we have held that philosophy is for the few. We have set over against our discoveries and experiments larger and smaller asterisks according to their importance and their stability, according to their importance and their subtlety. Let whosoever would make the same experiments handle the bodies carefully, skillfully, and deftly, not heedlessly and bunglingly. When an experiment fails, let him not in his ignorance condemn our discoveries, for there is naught in these books that has not been investigated, and again done and repeated under our eyes. Many things in our reasonings and our hypotheses will perhaps seem hard to accept, being at variance with the general opinion. But I have no doubt that hereafter they will win authoritativeness from the demonstrations themselves. Hence, the more advanced one is in the science of the lodestone, the more trust he has in the hypotheses, and the greater the progress he makes. Nor will one reach anything like certitude, yaqeen, in the magnetic philosophy, unless all or at all events most of its principles are known to him. This natural philosophy, physiologia, is almost a new thing, unheard of before. A very few writers have simply published some meager accounts of certain magnetic forces. Therefore, we do not at all quote the ancients and the Greeks as our supporters, for neither can paltry Greek argumentation demonstrate the truth most subtly, nor Greek terms more effectively, nor can both elucidate it better. Our doctrine of the lodestone is contradictory of most of the principles and axioms of the Greeks. Nor have we brought into this work any graces of rhetoric, any verbal ornateness, but have aimed simply at treating knotty questions, about which little is known in such a style and in such terms as are needed to make what is said clearly intelligible. Therefore, we sometimes employ words new and unheard of, not, as alchemists are wont to do, in order to veil things with a pedantic terminology and to make them dark and obscure, but in order that hidden things which have no name and that have never come into notice may be plainly and fully published. After the magnetic experiments and the account of the homogenic parts of the earth, we proceed to a consideration of the general nature of the whole earth. And here we decided to philosophize freely as in the past the Egyptians, Greeks, and Latins published their dogmas, for very many of their errors have been handed down from author to our own time. And as our Sciolists still take their stand on these foundations, they continue to stray about, so to speak, in perpetual darkness. To those men of early times, and as it were, first parents of philosophy, to Aristotle, Theophrastus, Ptolemaeus, Hippocrates, Galen, be due honor rendered ever. For from them has knowledge descended to those that have come after them. But our age has discovered and brought to light very many things which they too, were they among the living, would cheerfully adopt. Wherefore we have had no hesitation in setting forth in hypotheses that are provable the things that we have through a long experience discovered. Farewell. Note, see the rendering of this preface by Dr. B. W. Richardson and Mr. James Menzies, which appeared in the Asclepiad under the title The First Electrician, William Gilbert, M.D. Explanation of some terms used in this work. Terrella, Terrella, a spherical lodestone or natural magnet. Verticity, polar strength, activity, or what in Gilbert's day was understood as energy. Again, verticity, verticity, polar strength, activity, or what in Gilbert's day was understood as energy, not gyrating, vertiginous, but turning power. Nor is it polar revolution, but a directing virtue, an innate turning vigor, virtus, convertens. Electrics, electrics, bodies that attract in the same way as amber. Excited magnetic bodies, excited, magnetic, one such as iron or steel that acquires magnetism from a lodestone or natural magnet. Magnetized versorium, magnetized versorium, an iron bar or needle resting on a point electroscope and put in motion, excited by the lodestone or natural magnet. Non-magnetized versorium, non-magnetized versorium, the electroscope itself, made of any metal, for use in electrical experiments. Armed lodestone, armed lodestone, one that is furnished with an iron helmet or cap. Meridionally, meridionally, in the direction of a median, in the direction of a meridian. Parallel electrically, parallelletically, in the direction of a parallel of latitude. Cuspis, point. cuspis, point, the end of a magnetized versorium. Crotch, crotch, name sometimes given to the end not touched and excited, although in some instruments both ends are commonly so designated, according as they are most convenient for excitation by the lodestone. Cork, cork, bark of the cork tree. Radius, radius, of a lodestone sphere, a right line drawn in the shortest way from the surface of a spherical lodestone to the surface of a body, in which when produced passes through the center of the lodestone. Sphere of influence, sphereofinfluence, the entire space over which the force of a lodestone extends. Sphere of cohesion, sphereofincoition, the entire space over which the smallest magnetic body moves toward a lodestone. Ostensio, physical, ostensio, ostensio, physical demonstration opposed to theory. Magnetic cohesion, magnetic coition. This phrase is used rather than attraction, because magnetic movements do not result from attraction of one body alone, but from the coming together of two bodies harmoniously, not the drawing of one by the other. The cohesion is always vigorous, even though heavy substances make opposition. Declinatorium, declinatorium, a bar or needle movable vertically on its axis, and that is excited with a lodestone, used in the dip instrument. End of introduction. Following in another recording will be book 1, possibly appended to this one.